Life is hard, but it could be worse. Life is hard, but it could be
having
worse.
an argument. You're just contradicting
Life is
me.
hard.
Monty Python meets the Republican debates.
Yeah, a little bit.
Of course, they weren't allowed to watch them because they didn't have cable.
Welcome to Life is Hard podcast, and fuck CNBC. That's right, you heard it here first. I said a cuss word because CNBC sucks for not airing that thing online for free. You had to get we had to go to a European link.
Yes.
On the internet to watch the debate for the Republican candidates for President of the United States. And that is some fucking bullshit.
Yeah,
and I am mad at CNBC for
We ended
that.
up missing the beginning and watching a bootleg copy of the thing.
Yeah, which jitter and shook the whole time. It froze a couple times. What kind of crap? And another thing, while I'm ranting about CNBC, I don't like this tagline, your money, your vote. Right? Because that to me says the more money you have, the more votes you have, or the more influence on, which is exactly not the message I want to hear. I want to hear that the person that's got $1 million and me have the same say in who gets elected president. Even though you know it's not true, it would be nice if we would strive for that ideal. You know, one person, one vote, not $1, one vote.
Right, and corporations are not people. But in full disclosure, I am a registered Republican. So
I am unaffiliated, in full disclosure. I don't like either party. I don't like the idea of there being parties at all because there's still more concentrations of power. It's less about individuals. It's less about ideas. And it's more about how are you going to appeal to your base of people who are a herd of people who all think the same. How are you going to appeal to this herd of people that all have the same ideas? That's stupid. Let me hear as many different kind of ideas, as many out-of-the-box solutions as possible, rather than how are you going to appeal to these huge group of influential people that only think one way. That's dumb.
well, I'm glad you got that off your chest. Before we get off the MSNBC thing...
CNBC. We want to criticize the right people.
Yes. I want to make sure we point out that they were charging $250,000 for a 30-second spot on this, and we're not allowing the general public to see it without a cable subscription.
Yes, and Trump called him out on that.
Oh, and we were also not happy that they asked every person a different question. They never allowed everybody to answer the same question.
Yeah, when I was growing up, and I don't know how they did it before I was growing up because I didn't exist, but I remember debates, and I'm sure you do, where they said...
I mastered in debate. I was a master debater.
I'm glad to know that.
I did. I actually lettered in debate. But it was done good. This is nothing. I mean, a real debate is nothing like this.
Right.
You have a topic, and you get into details.
Right. And the old political debates that I remember, they said, what's your plan to fix Social Security? And then Kasich, go. Trump, go. Carson, go. Cruz, go. And they go down the line, and they each detail their thing. That
would make it a lot easier to compare the answers. When you ask everybody a different question, it's really hard to compare apples and apples.
Right. And it also gets into what they call substantive discussion or whatever about these topics that people care about, rather than, you said something about this guy. Do you still stand by that?
Yeah.
And then
they
get into a little squabble and all that crap, which the Republicans were actually surprisingly good. And I think they learned from the Democratic debate.
I think they did too.
About not infighting in each other.
There was at least a couple people who took tips from Sanders.
Yeah.
Was it Christie that went after the media, said you guys are...
No, it was Cruz.
Was it Cruz that went after the media and said you guys are asking all the wrong questions? There was a Huckabee. Anyway, somebody...
No, it was Cruz.
Yeah. Senator Cruz it was. I've got it in my notes here. Yeah, he said the media was the entire problem.
Right. And he said... I don't know if it was him that said, but somebody said, you're asking these crazy questions. We want to talk about the issues. We want to talk about. It was Cruz.
I think that was his entire rant.
And he was a little bit of a Bernie Sanders type.
He took the Bernie Sanders tack, yeah.
Yes, and I think he ripped it completely right off of him. I think that was a calculated move by Cruz, because otherwise than that, Cruz did not impress me at all. Except for that little move that he did.
Almost as well as Fiorina did in ripping off that quote you said from where she replaced tyranny with socialism.
Right. In the conspiracy theory echelon, if you want to call it that, there's a thing where they say how did she say the quote? She
said the government creates a problem and then they
Right.
Solution. She says socialism is where the government creates a problem and they come up with a solution. And
right, they're the conspiracy theory way to look at things, and this is the road to tyranny. Right? They always say this is how government become powerful, how you lead to statist society and military law and martial law and police state and all that kind of stuff. Is that the government creates the problem secretly, and then they play the hero by proposing the solution, which everybody votes for. Yes, give me the solution.
Classic V for Vendetta.
And then they become more powerful.
Be sure to watch that movie. Yeah,
I need to watch it again. It's been years. But she replaced the tyranny with socialism. She said, the government creates the problem, and then they create the solution. And then you have socialism. No, you have tyranny.
Yes.
So
yeah, they love to pick on socialists.
Yeah, so she kind of perverted a conspiracy theory angle on that, and I should know because I have delved into a lot of conspiracy theory angles.
She does say, though, that people should be held criminally liable for misrepresenting the facts.
People in corporations or people?
Well, she was saying that she was held criminally liable when she was a CEO. She had to report to various organizations, about projects and stuff. And she would, if she misreported something, if she lied, if she misrepresented the facts, she could be held criminally liable for it. And that's the way it should be. And I'm thinking the Republican Party is in big, big trouble if they have to be held accountable for when they misrepresent the facts. I mean, I don't want to get into all the shit they've misrepresented, but saying like that 9/11 didn't happen on George W. Bush's watch, and that the financial crisis we got into was Obama's fault. I mean, it's like they just have rewritten history whenever it was convenient for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, facts are misrepresented all over the place.
Well, yeah, but we're not holding people criminally responsible for getting it right. You can lie about anything you want. You can come up with some catchphrase that has no basis in reality. Just like the one I love they use over and over again is entitlement reform. Entitlement reform is a misnomer,
Right.
What that really means is we're going to take away your paycheck.
Right. We're not gonna pay you the Social Security that you've already paid in.
Yeah.
We're not gonna help you with Medicare or anything like that.
Yes, we're going to break all the government contracts. We're just going to...
Right, but we're not going to reform the entitlement of the rich. We're not going to reform the bailing out of big companies or the subsidies to oil companies.
So Chris Christie did good, though. He really addressed... I felt like he looked right at the camera, spoke really well to the American... and had some good things to say, too. I mean, He came up there and said he wanted to tell the Americans the truth.
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
I liked Christie a lot more than I anticipated, but he said one thing that totally threw me against the wall. I cringed. He said the number one job of the president is to keep the American people safe and secure. And that is absolutely the furthest thing from the number one job of the president or the government, the federal government. The number one job of the president or the federal government is to protect the rights of the individual from being taken away by anything that threatens it, including companies, other individuals,
and
our government,
states.
other governments, the states, anything. It's to protect individual liberty.
Because essentially we have a republic, and the federal government is basically just the overseer of the republic. It's not...
Correct. It's designed to... That's why, like, a state law can be ruled unconstitutional. Because the states can't abridge people's rights either. But the federal government's job is not to keep us safe. It's to keep us free.
Well, but even to be fair, though, on that premise, if you were to just say that Obama's job was to keep us safe, they're revising history a whole lot to say that he hasn't done a good job with that, because we have not had any attacks on our soil during Obama's reign. We've had if you compare Obama and Bush, Obama hasn't, they keep saying that he's not adequate in attacking Syria and all these other things. He's withdrawn troops from foreign countries. I'm all about that shit. We need to stop spending all this fucking money and getting Americans killed in things we got no business in.
Absolutely. Well, we have business in where it protects American interests, which means interests of American mega corporations.
That's what it comes down to. But I don't know where he was coming from saying that Obama wasn't keeping Americans safe, because aside whether it's his job or not, I don't see... Oh, he was referencing the police thing. Obama... This is another thing that was not fact-based. He said that the rise in crime was because cops were now afraid to get out of their cars.
Oh, yeah.
And deal with criminals. And that has been posited by some people in the media, but there's absolutely nothing to back that up. I just got through reading a long freaking article about the rise in... we've had a rise in homicide this year in like almost every big city in the country. And they don't know what's going on, but they can't show that it's because of cops. And there's a lot of evidence to the contrary. Cops are saying we're not doing that. We're not afraid to get out of our cars. We're doing our jobs just like we've always been. And a lot of people on the street are saying, yeah, the cops are doing exactly what they used to do. They're still frisking people. They're still
assaulting teenagers in classrooms.
They're still assaulting teenagers in classrooms. They're
still beating the bad guys with a stick until they comply. Sure.
I just saw a headline earlier that says some sheriff that was on Fox News said police brutality is a thing of the past. I don't know where he's living, but I think police brutality is alive and well.
He didn't finish the sentence. Police brutality is the thing of the past 100 years.
Right, yeah. We've been having it. It's a recurring problem.
For the past 200 years.
Oh my gosh, my notes changed back to the notes from a town meeting. It's nothing to do with this. Let me move ahead here.
Trump, I didn't think did that well in general, but he did awesome in setting up he's the one that made the debate last 2.5 hours instead of 3.5 hours, because he took the last half an hour for himself. They interviewed him separately from everybody else, and he got, I'm exaggerating, about a half an hour, but he got 10 full minutes.
He got about 10 minutes, yeah. Just for him to just speak uncontested.
Yep.
To lay out his little plan.
To say how awesome he was.
But I have to say, Trump says a lot of stuff that really strikes me as being pretty smart.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think he's a lunatic. So I'm like, what's going on here?
You've underestimated him.
Yeah, well, lunatics can be really intelligent, so you got to watch that. But he did,
He's an idiot savant.
As usual, he defended his bankruptcies. He said that's just a way of doing business. But I think that's so disingenuous, because he talks about how he wants to protect jobs and protect. And when you have these contracts, these businesses that are having trouble, and you just say, hey, I'm just going to file bankruptcy, and I'm just not going to pay my creditors, I'm not going to pay these companies, these contractors that are working for me, what do? They can't pay their employees, and so people get laid off and whatever, and I just think it's bullshit.
Well, I'm sure he had a bigger impact than me, because he's a giant corporation, but I filed bankruptcy in the past. So, when you need it...
I don't think he needed it, though. See, what Trump's talking about is not filing bankruptcy because he's absolutely broke. He has the money. He just looks at it and goes, well, I'm going to lose money if I follow through on this thing, so I'm just going to file bankruptcy and shut that business down and take everybody out with it. And I mean, this is not a situation where you get somebody who's destitute.
Right.
So that shit bothers me. I never... But at the same time, Trump says some stuff that's like, well, hell, put him in office. Put him to work.
I think he generally looks at it as it's a contest and I'm going to win. right? So when I'm talking about my company versus other companies, I'm going to file bankruptcy if that's going to make me come out on top and fuck all these other companies that are around me. But if you make me president, now I'm not only worried about my company, I'm worried about my entire country, and we're going to fuck all the other countries over, and we're still going to win. But all those people that I filed bankruptcy against, I'll now be helping because I consider them under my umbrella now. Before, they weren't under my umbrella because I didn't run the country. Now that I run the country, they're under my umbrella. But if they're in China, fuck them.
Well, what about the rapists?
Fuck them. Keep them in Mexico.
Is that where all the rapists are?
And who was the one that wants to... It was Trump, too, right? That was talking about the visas. And he says...
Yeah. He wants the best and the brightest.
Let them come in. The best and the brightest, right? So, give me your tired. No. Give me your smart. Give me your poor. No. Give me your talented. Your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. No. Your dedicated workers who are going to make us look better. It's like, we have totally... gone off the rails from where this country started as a haven for people that were crying for freedom of oppression and all this kind of stuff. And now we're just a fucking arrogant, if you're not helping us, fuck you, country.
Well, we're true capitalists.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not on our team, you ain't getting in, fuck you.
Well, Ben Carson...
I've cussed a lot tonight.
And you know what?
Republicans make me cuss.
What's really odd to me is that Ben Carson does not strike me as a front runner. Like, there's nothing about him that strikes me as a front runner. I'm like, this guy is leading in the polls?
Right. He's got no charisma. He does not sound smart at all for being a neurosurgeon.
And he keeps going on about protecting big business from government regulation, from all these other things. It's like big business... is running this country. They're killing us. And they need protection? That was like the thing I heard most.
They need protection from people that see what's going on, maybe.
Yeah, I just was having trouble.
From the V for Vendetta guy, they need protection from him.
Most of what he said just seemed like it was kind of like fluff with no substance. It was kind of like, oh yeah. But at the same time, when he did say something that made some kind of, like, I could make out what he was saying, I'm like, what the hell are you... I don't know. I just don't understand how he made the polls. Like, people just amaze me.
Yeah, I don't get it either. I think it's only because they're scared of what's going to happen if Trump really becomes president. When Trump was leading in the polls, and it was like, ha ha, Trump's leading in the polls, look at that, isn't this hilarious? It'll never work. And then as we get closer, and his lead is still way up there, and then we get closer, they're thinking, oh shit.
Yeah, Jeb Bush's history now.
What if Trump actually gets elected? Holy crap! We better pick somebody. Who's left?
I think they were hoping Jeb Bush would make a comeback tonight. I really do, because they really want Jeb Bush. But
I still think, and this is just my cynicism, and I will like to be proven wrong. But given the history of the country and the way we talk about the oligarchy and the powers that be and all that shit all the time, there is no possible way, in my mind, that it cannot, however unlikely it might seem right now, that it cannot come down to Clinton versus Bush. It just has to, because there's too much political power, too much money, and unless the system does not work the way we all know it does, that's the only possible.
But it's going to be like deja vu.
Because of Bill Clinton and George Bush?
Yeah, Clinton versus Bush again.
Right. Well, I mean, but it couldn't help but be that way. I think you maybe have Trump as a third-party candidate, like Ross Perot did when Clinton and the other Bush. Remember, Bill Clinton and Herbert Walker Bush.
Yeah.
Right, when they ran, I think was the year that Ross Perot, or one of the years that Ross Perot also ran, 1992.
I'm not sure, but I remember that Herbert Walker assumed he would win. He was.
Well, of course.
Yeah, he just figured he was entitled to a second term, and he did not run that election well. So I think that was basically why Clinton. I don't. But
a lot of people blame Perot.
Yeah.
Because he ran and he was kind of businessy guy, a little bit libertarian, but he was more like, I don't care about the social stuff.
Well,
I don't
he
care
paid
about
for
the
his
religious
own
shit.
campaign.
Right, I'm just looking at it as a business and I can fix it. Anyway, in theory, he stole votes from Bush. And that's part of what helped Clinton to win.
I really think Bush just sucked that in that election. But
he probably felt entitled.
Chris Christie said something interesting. He said that if he was president, the people would be in jail. The people at GM for having that recall. People got killed. The whole corporate scandal thing. Instead they got fines and blames it on.
He's basically going to pierce the corporate veil of liability.
Exactly, and just start throwing people in jail. I don't know who. CEOs,
right, but are you going to do that for the banks? Are you going to do that for, the insurance companies?
We definitely can't forget to mention two things. One, that Jeb Bush is going to give every family $2,000 per year. And
that's the best plan. Jeb Bush has the best plan among Republicans for working families. Y'all are going to get $2,000 a year. Like, thanks, that barely pays my electric bill, maybe.
Right.
Thanks a lot, Jeb. And that's the best plan, and that's sick and sad.
And the other thing, this is another flashback to V for Vendetta. When a Republican gets elected to office, all of a sudden they're going to find a cure for the top 4 diseases.
Yes, Mike Huckabee's solution for Medicare and Social Security is, we're just going to eradicate cancer, and we're going to eradicate diabetes and obesity and heart disease. Right? So when Huckabee gets elected president and all of a sudden those diseases disappear magically, I think there's something up.
Yeah.
Like they have the cure now, they're just waiting.
The one thing I will say for this debate is it ended on a note. They said America is the most extraordinary country on earth, and I'm happy about that because I'm proud to be an American.
Because we're extraordinarily arrogant about how extraordinary we are.
Apparently, yeah, we're convinced that we're just.
But it could be.
Maybe they mean literally extraordinary. Like we're definitely not ordinary. We're beyond ordinary.
Our listeners are extraordinary. We'll say that.
But it could be.
They are, both of them.
Life is hard.
Be sure to subscribe.
Comments at lifeishardpodcast.com.
Life is hard.
Yeah, and like us and all that stuff.
But it could be worse.
All that jazz.
Life is hard. But it could be worse.